So I'm here with Kevin Monfelt and Byron Farris. Kevin, you're in Nebraska. What part of Nebraska are you in?
Southeast.
Southeast.
Yep.
And you moved bees down to Florida. You work with Bob Benny some.
A little bit.
You go and stay with him some in the spring and help him out with his hives before yours really get going, because you've got a real winter where you're at.
Yeah.
And how many colonies are you running now?
300.
300.
Yep.
And you're a honey producer. You sell a lot of creamed honeys. You've got a bunch of different varieties of creamed honey.
Yeah.
You're selling nukes.
Yep.
What else are you doing?
Well, my wife runs our specialty honeys at different events. She does 50 weeks a year, anywhere from 2 to 6 events a week.
What's your business name?
Bee-Bum.
Bee-Bum.
Yeah, so
have you got a website?
We do. www.beebumhoney.com.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a pretty sizable operation. You're doing that full time?
I do, yeah. My wife still works a full-time job as the fiscal director for the Mental Health Association of Nebraska, but I'm a full-time beekeeper. Yeah.
Byron?
Yes.
Byron needs no introduction. Byron Farris. How many hives have you got now? About 80-ish?
No, I'm a little lower right now. I'm back down to probably about 50 to 60.
50 to 60?
Yeah.
How many years to retirement?
4.
We're counting down every year.
Absolutely.
And you're going to go to, what, 1,500 hives as soon as you get out of work?
Probably not. Sounds a little too much.
Intimidating.
Yeah, very intimidating.
So you've got a sideline operation, and you're a glutton for punishment, because your job, grounds manager, the busy season for your day job also happens to be the peak season for beekeeping.
Yes.
So it's like you get a winter break from everything, and then you have to work 24 hours a day during the season.
Well, that's right. For those who don't know, I'm a turf grass manager by trade, so my season for turf grass management falls in line with beekeeping, and it's a very tough juggling act. I was telling Ian Stepler the other day on Messenger that I don't think there's an off season to beekeeping, because by the time I get done putting the bees to bed for winter, I'm already working on equipment or trying to get reorganized or what have you. So it just takes pretty much all your time.
Yeah, and I'm in the commercial beekeepers group on Facebook, and on New Year's Day somebody posted that they were just starting their 2023 project list, and here it is, 2025. I feel the same.
Absolutely.
Like the things I want to get done over winter, I'd say all year, man, when things slow down over winter, I'll get that done, and I'm still saying it in May or June. It's not going to get done.
I try to go into the season organized. I'm sure y'all do too.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to have this over here, that over there in my shop. Everything's where I know where it is. But about a week goes in, and then it just all goes to pot. Because I think beekeepers only know where all their stuff is.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
Mine's in one of 3 places. You know, it's either at my dad's shop where I offloaded it from the trailer, or it's at my barn where I offloaded the trailer, or it's at the honey house. And all those places are real close together, but there's just piles of stuff. Like in an emergency, I need to unload the trailer and load supers on or something, and you just end up with piles of stuff everywhere.
I've started with, okay, I got my excluders here, I've got my double deeps here, I got my comb here, I got my foundation here, I've got my double screen boards, whatever I think I need, and then I get one thing out, and I get something else, and by the end of the day, it's all messed up.
Yeah.
So I feel you. I know for sure.
Yeah. So 50-ish colonies, you're selling nukes,
we'll double that number easy in springtime.
Yeah, and you're doing liquid honey, but also both of you guys kind of specialize in creamed honey.
That's correct.
And that's what we want to talk about today. Almost all honeys will crystallize. There are some that may not. It's based on the balance of sugars in the nectar source, right. Fructose to dextrose. Something high in dextrose will crystallize very quickly.
Yep.
Something very low in dextrose may never crystallize.
Right.
So honey like Tupelo, sourwood, very, very slow to crystallize, may never crystallize. Things like cotton, canola, and some of those are very quick to crystallize. They'll crystallize hard as a rock in 3 weeks. some honeys will crystallize while it's still in the comb before you can get it extracted. So when you're making creamed honey, you're basically controlling that process, because some honeys like goldenrod, I've noticed, makes a very large, almost like a glass shard when it crystallizes. It's very crunchy. It's not pleasant, at least the ones that I've had. And what you're doing with creamed honey is you're trying to control that crystal size so it's very fine, very small, and very round. So think of it like snowflakes. You want really small, round snowflakes instead of big, jagged flakes. And that gives it a real creamy mouthfeel. It's very pleasant. And then you can have a hard creamed honey. You can have a softer creamed honey. Softer creamed honeys you can spread on toast or biscuits and things like that. Harder creamed honeys, maybe you need a spoon to get it out. So
even the hard ones soften after you use it a little bit, or I've seen a lot of people like stab it with a knife and it'll soften it up some. But we make ours harder because we do so many events in a year, and a lot of times during the summer it's outdoors. So if we have it firmer, it transports better, it keeps better for the customer, and then by the time they get it home, it's softened some. So that's why we make it firmer.
If you make it softer, you've almost got to keep it in a cooler if you're out on a hot day.
Right, and we still do even with the firm stuff, just so that it preserves it longer for the people that are the end user, so they got a good product when they get home. Nobody wants to have a separated container of creamed honey.
So what does your process of making creamed honey look like?
Well, we're still in the Stone Age. We started that way. We like the buckets, and the primary reason we like the buckets is because we make 24 flavors of creamed honey. So in order to do that the way we do it, I'd have to have a lot of machines.
So I'll add some context here. You like the buckets. That means you're using a 5-gallon bucket to make 60 pounds of creamed honey at a time. And you're using a big mixer that you put in a corded drill.
Man Lake sells that.
Man Lake sells a mixer that will fit a 5-gallon bucket. And you have to add seed to honey. Basically, you get all the crystals out of some honey. And then you add the crystals you want it to have. It's your starter, like bread starter. And then that crystal pattern will permeate throughout that bucket. So the reason you like buckets is because you're making a bunch of different flavors, and you're able to do smaller batches of a bunch of flavors versus
simultaneously.
Versus a large quantity of 1 or 2 flavors. Byron, you're using a machine, a mixer for most of yours, aren't you?
He's high tech.
I'm not high tech, but I'm definitely the smallest man in the room here.
Whatever.
Under the tent.
He keeps me on my toes. I tell you what, I watch him all the time, what he's got going on, and Byron does a good job at what he's doing.
Well, I do take a little different approach, but I'm also smaller scale than you because we only provide, 6 different flavors, with one of those being the regular. So, we have 2 creamers. We have the licensed 36-gallon. It's a double jacketed tank with the creaming attachment, and we use that to make all of our regular product. And then if we're going to go to specialty, we will pump from that tank over into a Hilco smaller unit, and then make our smaller batches in that machine, because number one, it's a smaller machine. It's easier to clean up, to transition between, one type to the next, and to clean the lice, and it takes some work. It takes a lot of work. And it's a lot heavier to move around. So the Hilco is much lighter, and so we're basically using the Hilco. Even though we can cream with it, we're also using it to disperse our flavors to get the mix just right.
So the licensed 36-gallon, that's a max of 400 and some pounds. Are you making full batches when you?
We will start off with small batches and just work our way up, and we'll pump honey, or we'll pump seed, whatever we got to do, into the tank from the bottom and work our way up. And when we get to a certain pipe in the tank, we can just pour honey directly in.
Okay. So, from my business perspective, I'm thinking, all right, if you're running that kind of a system, then you're probably keeping some inventory in pots or in jars, whatever. So you just make a batch, jar that batch, put it into storage, probably cold storage, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so...
And then when you get down to a certain amount, you'll go and make that flavor again.
Correct. So we don't travel and do a whole lot of shows. We do provide product in our area. I think it's about 10 or 11 stores. So we do make it in advance. And we do have wine coolers or chillers to keep the product preserved, because we do want it to aesthetically look pleasing when it goes to the store, but also we want to help keep those enzymes that are the beneficial parts of the honey. We want to keep that degradation process slowed down, because we all know over time honey does lose out of enzyme effectiveness. Kind of look at it as a half-life. I believe Bob Benny talks about honey, and he mentions that. So anytime you heat honey, you do, degrade the process over a period of time versus letting it just sit in the jar at room temperature. So to protect it from the beneficial standpoint, for the beneficial standpoint, and also the aesthetics, we do keep it in the cooler.
What temperature do you store it at?
Well, we can store it anywhere from 60 to 45 degrees. I do like to keep mine a little bit cooler. I keep mine around 45 to 50. I do experimentation with freezing. So we can freeze some of our product if we want to keep it super long term. Shows no effect at all to the product. I have creamed honey that we have tested in jars that have been frozen for over a year, and we can't tell any difference. So if you've ever froze honey in its liquid state or its crystallized state,
it's the best way to store it.
It's really the best way to store it overall, but honey doesn't freeze. It gets really hard like taffy. So it thaws out pretty quickly.
I'll add this real quick because I get this question. You can take my bottle of liquid honey, stick it in the deep freezer. It won't expand and crack the bottle. So no problem there. It won't crystallize while it's frozen. And the enzymes don't degrade while it's frozen. So that it is the best way to store honey long term. Stays fresh and won't crystallize. And it's good to know that creamed honey is the same. So on temperature, 57 degrees Fahrenheit is supposed to be the best temperature to promote crystallization in honey.
That is the number that I hear. I would like to know, and I haven't done enough research, and maybe Kevin can allude, where did that number come from?
Dice.
Right. I kind of figured it came from Dice, but is it their climate that they just, what is... why 57?
I don't know.
Can it be 55? Can it be 60?
It can be. I mean, I do it all the time. We have Inkbird thermostat, on our cooler, and it fluctuates between like 53 and 60. So the lower the cooler is on product, the more it fluctuates. The fuller the cooler is of product, the less it fluctuates. So if we've got a full freezer full, it doesn't fluctuate as much. So sometimes when we see that fluctuating temperature, it actually sets quicker than it does if it's full and stays at the even temperature. So I've not experimented or anything, but that's just my experience with it.
So let's talk process.
Yeah.
Kevin, you're making batches in 60-pound buckets.
Yep.
So you get a bucket of honey. Are you warming it before you?
Yeah, we make sure we got all the. So it's typically our honey. We make sure it's got all of the crystals out of it.
So you're warming it up to at least
we do
110.
110. Yeah, we do 110.
And you're pre-filtering?
If it wasn't filtered by us, then we filter it.
How important do you think that step is?
It's very important because a lot of times, like if you get honey that was extracted and you got a lot of large particulate of pollen in there or debris, that's where your larger crystals are going to form out on those bigger pieces.
So does it matter if it's filtered to 600 micron versus 800 micron, or you think it just needs to be filtered?
I don't know about that. We typically go with the 600 is where we're at, and I don't have it. Byron?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So Byron, you're making sure that you get it up to 110, all the crystals are gone, and you've got no big particulates when you get started.
Yes, I will. Let's say I get a bucket of, a lot of my buckets will crystallize because we keep them in cold storage, natural cold storage, so it's exposed to the elements. We'll warm it, mix it to make sure we get all the crystals loose from the bottom and the sides.
So buckets typically crystallize from the bottom first.
That's correct.
And that's the last part that gets decrystallized if you heat them. So you really need to stir.
So we will stir, and then I know it's already been filtered. But what I'm going to do, I'm gonna run through the filter again, because if I miss any, crystals that did not, dissolve, then I got a problem. So I will run it through, and anything I catch, I will put it over in another bucket, and I'll save it for another day for something else.
Look for insurance.
Yeah, I'll heat it again or something, but I want to make sure. I may actually do it twice just to be sure that all of my crystals are completely gone and they made it through that 600 micron. Then I'm comfortable enough to move to the next step, and so I will let it cool down to room temperature, which here lately I've been putting it outside because I want it as cool as I can get it. And so usually some of the honey that we've been using has been in the 60s to 70s, and that works really well for creaming honey.
So you get it cooled from 110 down to 60 or 70 degrees, yes. And then you're adding your starter?
Yes, we'll add a starter. And then we'll do a pre-mix before it goes into the tank, and I make sure that we've got it well dispersed, and then we'll go from there.
So you're mixing your starter in the bucket before it goes into the tank?
Yeah, we'll suck it in.
Okay.
And then once you
doing 10%?
Well, that's the key, no less than 10. But sometimes we'll go higher. We'll go 20. We'll go 30. We'll go 50, because I want to be sure that.
So you're using all of what you got in your.
Yes. So once we start building our product up in the tank, I'll hit the pump in reverse and go back into a bucket, and I'll mix it there and then suck it back in.
Okay.
So we're doing.
So you're keeping your starter in the tank. You got cream honey in the tank, and you just reverse your pump. So that's a licensed pump, I'm guessing, since it's reverse polarity. You can do that with some other pumps, but you've got to have a electrical shop wire it to do this.
That's correct.
And it's motor specific whether you can do that or not safely. So with that pump, you're able to just move your starter out of the tank into the bucket, mix it, and then
reverse it back
in, and
yes.
Basically you're just adding more into the same batch.
And I'll actually increase my RPM speed of my paddles to make sure that that product gets well dispersed up into the tank. Also, if the tank gets 3/4 full, I can probably pour honey straight in, but I still like the idea of coming out and remixing it to be sure. So it's an extra step, and it just works really well. Then I'll end up slowing the paddles back down to the lowest speed and letting it churn. Obviously we're introducing air, so we're gonna have to let that air dissipate up to the surface. We don't want to bottle it right away.
So one of the benefits of the license machine is you can set it to churn for 15 minutes and then be off for 45, and then churn for 15, then be off for 45.
And I can set that to a maximum of 99 hours, so a little over 4 days.
So it's just running and you're not watching it.
Yes,
as a benefit.
And I'm doing this in a room that's probably 68 degrees.
Yeah.
You know, I like to take advantage of the cooler weather. I don't make much creamed honey in the summertime. A little harder for me to do it. So I try to make it in advance and store it.
So, Kevin, your process, how much starter are you adding to it?
8 to 10. See, two different, like, yeah. But
so you're adding more than 10%. If you got a 60-pound bucket, you're adding 8 to 10 pounds of starter?
No,
or you're starting
10%.
With, 8 to 10%.
Yeah, 8 to 10%.
So you're adding 5 or 6 pounds of starter into a 60-pound bucket.
Right. Yeah.
But not in the bucket, or are you underfilling your buckets? Because 60 pounds of honey in a bucket is nearly to the top.
We underfill the bucket.
Underfill the bucket, you get 55?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
54, 55 pounds of honey in a bucket. You fill it up with starter, and then you begin mixing.
Actually, if it's a flavor, we flavor it first.
Okay.
That way, once you
what
put
does that look like?
Well, we use freeze-dried or powdered, whatever. Like cinnamon's just plain cinnamon. The chocolate is just baker's chocolate, but for the most part, we just use freeze-dried fruits, and then we pulverize those into a powder with a food processor, so that it's very fine.
How much cinnamon does it take to flavor a 55-pound bucket of honey?
We use 2 cups.
2 cups.
Yeah,
that's a lot of cinnamon.
Yeah, it is a lot of cinnamon. Yeah.
That gets expensive.
It can, but it's our cinnamon's our most popular flavor. I mean, it sells very. Yours too, Byron? Cinnamon
does really well.
Yeah, cinnamon
people
and like cinnamon.
Just go together.
Yeah,
it just really does.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with it.
So you're flavoring ahead of time, adding 5 or 6 pounds of starter.
Yep.
Thoroughly mixing that.
Yeah, we thoroughly incorporate it so that the bucket is the same color and consistency from top to bottom. So I use a bottling bucket, and I'll take it off the bottom, and I'll mix some more, and then I'll dump it back in the top, and then I'll mix some more, and I'll just keep doing that till what I got coming out the bottom is the same color and consistency without any streaks or stripes in it, and just keep doing it. Byron's doing the same thing, but with equipment.
Yeah, so I do just a little bit different. Is the Lyson has the regular product. When we do our specialties, we pump it over to the hill coat, and we pump it in, so we fill from the bottom up, and we'll put in 50 to 60 pounds. I know where that mark is, and we will add our cinnamon, butter rum, oil, vanilla oil, pumpkin spice, cocoa for chocolate. We'll add that in, and I'll use the hill code to do my mixing. And I will turn the machine up to full speed or 3/4 speed to really get it incorporated. And then I'll let it run overnight, maybe 2 days at a slower RPM where it's just barely turning. And then I'm satisfied that all the air is at the top, and then the product is dispersed. And I'll do some test runs, like when I jar the first one, I'll just jar into an unlabeled jar to look at it. I will jar 3 or 4 out to see if the color's right, everything looks consistent in the taste. We'll taste it from the top, to see if we need to add or more. I mean, we have a recipe, but for some reason, I may not need to add as much. Or I may need to add a little more the next year. It just depends. So once I feel like, hey, we're good enough, then we're going to go ahead and jar it all. And then it's a quick cleanup, and we start the next batch.
You think